Heyo, and what is up, gang? Thank you for checking out Sledgehammer TV tonight. After a few weeks and a string of a couple of very enjoyable, highly watchable episodes of Smackdown, this week it reverts to its good old suck-down self in a show that did nothing but accomplish muddying the waters and making this a very confusing build to this year's upcoming Survivor Series. All that and so much more as we focus on everything wrong with tonight's episode of Smackdown right here and right now. My name is Nick Nightmare. You are watching the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show's Smackdown review and reaction show. Let's do it.
The Sledgehammer Wrestling Show.
It should come as a surprise to none of you that one of the main reasons tonight's episode of SmackDown was such a bust was the mere presence of Monday Night Raw. Yes, Monday Night Raw was on SmackDown tonight in the form of Drew McIntyre, who decided to break the rules of the brand split. It didn't take them long at all to spit right in the face of the draft because they have to do something to promote these interpromotional matches for Survivor Series. Never mind the fact that we've just spent the last few weeks talking about how Survivor Series is the one night of the year where we all have these clashes between Raw and SmackDown. Never mind the fact that we've been seeing them for the last 6 months. But even if we put all that aside, the whole thing that has happened tonight with Drew McIntyre is the most confusing thing ever. They have been booking Survivor Series or pushing the build to Survivor Series as Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton. But you would have to believe that after watching tonight's episode of SmackDown, Drew McIntyre almost has to win this championship match that he is going to have on Monday night with Randy Orton. Or else what the hell was the point of everything that happened tonight? Drew McIntyre shows up tonight to confront Roman Reigns, pretty much looking past Randy Orton altogether. Just completely putting him to the side, like it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to win Monday night, and Survivor Series is going to be Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns in a battle to see who is truly the secondary champion of this company. While this interaction and this confrontation did give us some pretty good television, thanks in part to the Tribal Chief and his cousin Jey Uso and their tremendously emotional and very, very convincing performances, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense to be doing any of this. And we're not even going to talk about how it's just wrong for them to do this so quickly after the draft and to make the brand split unimportant. That's not even the issue here. The issue here is that if Drew McIntyre doesn't win on Monday night, how much of an ass does he look like for what he just did tonight on SmackDown? He shows up, gets himself involved in a match with Jey Uso, which gets Jey Uso in trouble with the Tribal Chief to begin with. Roman Reigns tore his ass up, just chewed him out in the back. And I was so terrified. I was sitting on my couch as Roman Reigns was running down Jey Uso, telling him, this is my yard. You know, I run this place. You talking about we run this place. This is my house, and you don't do things unless I tell you to do things. And I'm sitting on my couch like, damn, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I won't do nothing. I won't even do my review tonight if you don't tell me to go do the review. It's just the turnaround for Roman Reigns has been fantastic, and it has subsequently made Jey Uso one of the best things happening on SmackDown as well. But then they do something like this with Drew McIntyre, and it throws all of that by the wayside, because you had him come to SmackDown tonight, ends up in the main event versus Jey Uso, and you quell Jey Uso's push. He has been on a tear. He has been taking out some of the biggest names in the business. He took out Daniel Bryan. He took out Kevin Owens. He has been on fire, and to have him lose tonight to Drew McIntyre is just a stupid thing to do. It's a stupid thing to do, and what is the point? What is the reason behind it? To promote Drew's match on Monday? Like, what was the reasoning to do this? There was only one way they should have finished this main event, and that should have been Randy Orton. You already had Drew McIntyre there. What does it matter if you had one more person from Raw show up? Randy Orton should have came out, RKO Drew McIntyre out of nowhere, gives Jey Uso the win, also puts some heat on their match for Monday. Drew needs a reason to, even more of a reason, to get his revenge on Randy Orton. And if you pull the trigger on the title change, so be it. Because honestly, based off of what we've seen tonight, Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns is the more appealing match. It definitely has the heel babyface dynamic down, whereas with Randy, it's going to be heel versus heel. And it almost makes it a little bit predictable as to how that's going to go down. But we'll have to wait and see, I guess. But I feel like it has to happen now, right? Like they almost gave it away. Drew McIntyre is going to win with only a few days to go before Survivor Series. And at the last minute, he's going to be in this championship matchup when this should have been the match you've been promoting all along. If this was your plan from the get-go, what was the reason to give it back to Randy? It just seems silly. But if they don't do it, it still seems silly. And that's what it's like to watch WWE programming. It just doesn't make sense, and it makes me absolutely crazy. Just like they are absolutely crazy with the way they decided to do this whole entire show, because there was nothing of importance on this show. They had the final matchup between Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins. I'll believe that when I see it. Hopefully that they're going to stick to that, but they also told us that Cena and The Rock were going to be once in a lifetime. Remember that? And how many times have we seen The Undertaker's last match? So I don't believe that this is going to be the final goodbye for The Undertaker that we are going to see this month as well. This is just things that they like to say to make the match feel more important. But while this match was mildly entertaining, it's just another in a string of Rey versus Seth matches that we've been seeing since before WrestleMania. Just the same old stuff, and it did have some stakes involved, as this was going to, I guess, be the conclusion, the blow-off. But if this is what you were going to do, why are we doing it on a random SmackDown? Why didn't you hold off and book this as a match at WrestleMania? No holds barred. Rey Mysterio versus Seth Rollins. Who will survive? Give you that Survivor Series feeling. It's going to be the end of the rivalry. You didn't need to do it this soon. And then you could have had this nice little moment that you had tonight on SmackDown. The Mysterio family's all happy because Rey Mysterio wins. He gets his revenge against Rollins. Buddy Murphy helped. So now everybody's accepting Buddy Murphy after weeks of beating his ass. And now all is good. All is good. But is it? Because what's going to happen now? Seth Rollins is pissed at Buddy Murphy. Buddy Murphy's going out with Aaliyah. He's got the blessing of the Mysterios. She's going to be with Buddy Murphy. So still we have Rollins versus the Mysterios in some way, shape, or form. We also know that Seth Rollins is going to be most likely taking a hiatus after Survivor Series. So it's very, very likely that they're just trying to finish up all his storylines. They're going to have him face off with Buddy Murphy next week on SmackDown, probably finishing that off before Sunday. He could be on the Survivor Series team, probably be the first one eliminated, probably maybe even be the winner of the whole thing before it all is said and done, and then rides off into the sunset to go be with Becky Lynch and have their baby, which is great. It's very needed. He needs a break. We need a break from him, and I think it's a perfect time to do something like that. Most likely, he'll probably be back by the Royal Rumble, but even if it's just for a couple of weeks that we don't have to see the Messiah on TV, give us a break from the overexposure of him that we've had to deal with all this time. It'll be a welcome thing, at least on this channel, and I know you guys probably feel the same. Another thing they did that was absolutely awful tonight is the way they went about fulfilling some of the spots on the women's team, yet we had another triple threat match added. But here's where things get strange. We had Chelsea Greene show up out of nowhere. Now, if you don't know who Chelsea Greene is, that's not your fault. That's the WWE's fault, because they decided to just show her randomly backstage with the non-GM Adam Pearce right before the triple threat match for the women is going down. In this triple threat match is Natty, again trying to win her way onto the team, there is Tamina, and there is Liv Morgan. And as the match is about to begin, it is announced that this was changed into a fatal four-way, and we have the very underwhelming debut of Chelsea Greene. Nobody knows who she is. She didn't get to say a word. We haven't seen any vignettes building towards her arrival on SmackDown. She's just there. Hi, here's this girl. She's random. She's out of nowhere. If you don't watch NXT, you don't know who she is, and this is typical WWE-style booking for their new talent, which is why nobody gets over. What is her character about? Who is she? We don't know. And then to make things worse, they book her terribly this way for her debut. We don't know what they may have had planned following it, because within a minute or two of the match, this girl goes out there and gets herself injured, breaking her left wrist. As I'm reading reports just before we hit the record button, Chelsea Greene made her debut for a minute, was the only one tonight that got the full entrance treatment. Everybody else got the jobber entrance during the commercial breaks, which were very plentiful tonight. And then she was just gone. She was just gone. And I thought it was weird at first, because I thought that's maybe how they wrote it. Like maybe she was too good for this match and she decided to walk out. I don't know. The only good thing that I could pull out of watching this match at all was the fact that Liv Morgan looked kind of impressive tonight, and she ended up winning the matchup, earning her spot on the Survivor Series team. But if the injury was the only reason Chelsea Greene was taken out, which you gotta believe is the case, it's quite possible that she was supposed to get the win here in her debut and be put on to Team SmackDown, even though nobody knows who she is. Maybe she followed up the win with a promo segment to say something to the world. I would like to think that that was the plan, but you can't think the WWE does anything logical, so I don't think that was the plan. But we'll never know now, will we? Because they put her in this match unnecessarily, and now she's going to be out for an unknown amount of time rehabilitating a broken wrist, which is exactly the same thing that happened to her when she debuted in NXT. So it's almost like a curse to be in NXT and then come to the roster. Not just because of the creative things, but these guys that tend to be injury prone seem to suffer the bug even more so when they get to the main roster. Other than that, there was nothing really going on this show. As we said, we opened up with Roman Reigns coming out to do his Roman Reigns promo thing, which was great. Talking about how he's made Jey Uso a big star in the company now, which is true. And then he got interrupted by Drew McIntyre. And they got into this little back and forth talking about who's going to be the true secondary champion. It was good promo stuff, but it, like we said at the start of the show, this just didn't make very much sense. Unless Drew McIntyre is going to beat Randy Orton Monday night. But we'll get there when we get there. If I can get through it, because Monday Night Raw for the last 2 weeks is 2-0 versus me, putting me to sleep well into the third hour of the show, which has been giving us broadcast issues, of course, which is why you didn't get a Raw review this week. My apologies for that. But hey, it is what it is, and the power of the boredom of Monday Night Raw is very powerful. Very, very powerful. We had an Intercontinental Championship match booked on the fly. Sami Zayn forced to defend the title this week against Apollo Crews. I guess because Apollo Crews was a former United States champion. He couldn't beat Bobby Lashley, so beating him here doesn't really prove much for Sami Zayn, and he didn't feel like he needed to have this match. He had a good promo before the match began, talking about the WWE and their conspiracy against the Intercontinental Champion and how this was a terrible thing for them to do to him, leading into his Survivor Series matchup. But this match had a terrible finish, which is Sami Zayn tied Apollo Crews' legs to the underneath side of the ring where you would have the ring apron. He pulled up the apron, tied up Apollo Crews to force the count out. Which, yeah, I guess is a Weasley evil way for Sami Zayn to go about doing things, which is his gimmick. I get it, he's a cheater and whatever, but that's just seemed kind of pointless. Made Apollo Crews look dumb, and once again, Made absolutely no sense. Just like Adam Pearce being able to run the show and call things on the fly is really, really ridiculous. He talked to Drew McIntyre in the back and made everything official between him and Jey Uso tonight for the main event of the show. We've seen an interview with Rey Mysterio and his family where he says what he always says, that Seth Rollins made this personal, he brought his family into it, but tonight this comes to an end, and boy, do I hope it's true. We had Sasha Banks coming out looking like the sexiest cheetah you ever seen in your life, holding her SmackDown Women's Championship, and this was kind of weird to me. She went out there, gave your basic champion promo, like, I'm the champion now, everybody in the back, you're all on notice. Oh, and by the way, Carmella, she was going to address Carmella for attacking her last week on SmackDown, but before she could really get into it, Bayley came out, and I'm sitting here thinking, no, not again, we're not going to do this again. My mind completely went blank, but then suddenly I went, oh, wait a minute, here it comes, and then boom, out of nowhere, Carmella shows up and super kicks Sasha Banks right in the face, stands there, poses. I don't know what is supposed to be different about Carmella, except the fact that she's calling herself untouchable. So instead of Mella is money, Mella is now untouchable. She's targeted the champ. This is the second week in a row now. She's kicked the champ right in the teeth. So obviously there's a match in these girls' future. Does Carmella deserve it? She's a former champion. I mean, I guess of all the girls on the roster outside of Bayley, she's the one with the most credentials. And I guess it's really just that bad. It's really just that bad. Or they're just really high on her. But you know what happens to people that they're really high on? You get pushed for a couple of weeks, and then you get buried for the remainder of the year, just like you could say about Otis. Otis tonight was in the back eating food because, you know, we have to show fat guys eating. And Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode would show up talking about him as if he wasn't even there, saying how he's a loser, talking about how he's eating alone because he lost Mandy Rose and he lost the Money in the Bank to The Miz, and then Otis gets all pissed off, flips his table over, and gets all amped up. And of course, this was the lead-in to another matchup for Otis versus Dolph Ziggler. Like, we haven't seen that done 1,000 times this year. This was a very short match where Otis was able to overcome Dolph Ziggler, because that's Dolph's job now, is to look up at the lights and to put other people over, despite having Bobby Roode on the outside, who did try to interfere but did not do it successfully, only ended up backing away like a chicken shit, which is a terrible way to book Bobby Roode in the first place. But Otis gets a much-needed win, and then this is followed up by Otis in the back being approached by Chad Gable. Chad Gable, with an evil little twinkle in his eye, I think is making some sort of a heel turn. He gives Otis a pamphlet talking about how he's a prime candidate for the Alpha Academy because he needs to be how he was tonight all the time. Now, I could get on board with this if this is going to be a faction, but if this is just WWE finding a way to put Otis into another tag team after breaking him away from his old tag team, which never even got a chance to flourish, this is just another case of them booking themselves into a situation where they don't know what to do with a superstar. And we have seen constantly over the last couple of weeks, especially in the women's division, just random pairings of superstars. And this would be just one of the stupidest things to do with Otis. Heavy Machinery was just fine. You guys booked them into the ground. All you had to do was take them a little bit seriously, and they could have been a top act on SmackDown. You didn't need to break them up. And if you only broke them up to make this a tag team, that I'm going to always have a little bit of a grudge against it. If this, however, is Chad Gable forming his own sort of team angle, calling it the Alpha Academy, I can get on board. Maybe Otis is the first of many members, and we have another decent heel faction running around in the WWE. I would be fine with that. Then we had the no-holds-barred final encounter between Rey Mysterio, the final chapter, with Seth Rollins, and Rey Mysterio defeated Seth Rollins with the help of Buddy Murphy, who stayed in Seth Rollins' corner for the entirety of the match. Rey Mysterio, of course, had the entire family out there at ringside, and despite the fact that this was a no-holds-barred match, Dominic Mysterio didn't really get involved. Buddy Murphy, however, did. He made it seem as if he was going to help Seth Rollins. He set up a chair in the ring for Seth, and then he went to go pick up Rey Mysterio, and out of nowhere, boom! Everybody taking cues from Randy Orton tonight, attacking out of nowhere. Gives Seth Rollins a running knee to the face, sets him up for the defeat. Rey Mysterio with a very rare miss of the first attempt at the 619, but followed it up with a successful one, and then he paid homage to Eddie Guerrero on the 15th anniversary of his passing, winning this matchup and ending this feud, hopefully with a frog splash. It was a decent match, as Rollins and Mysterio can put on a pretty good match. But, you know, it's finally over. Thank God. Thank God for that. And hopefully they stick to it. After the match, Rey Mysterio demanded Buddy Murphy get into the ring. He said, you want my approval? You got it. He stuck out his hand. They shook hands. He also shook hands with Dominic, finally getting the approval of the entire family. He got a hug from Mom, and then he hugged his squeeze, and it's just kind of icky, and I don't really care for it. I don't know where it's going to go now that this is finally come to an end. But as I said at the start of the show, it's just going to be like smoke and mirrors. And it's just another way for them to have this history with the Mysterios feature as a part of the story they are going to continue to tell with Seth and Buddy Murphy over the course of the next week until Seth Rollins leaves. And then we don't have to really hear much of it again. But what are they going to do with Buddy and Aaliyah after that? Time will only tell. Seth Rollins went to the back and confronted Adam Pearce, who is not the general manager, but is being treated like the general manager more and more every single week, and he wants revenge on his former disciples, so he challenges for a match next week, which he is given. The Survivor Series qualifying match for the women went down. Liv Morgan defeated Chelsea Green, Natalya, and Tamina. Now this girl has a loss in her debut, thanks to what happened tonight. I'm almost positive that was not supposed to happen. She was probably going to win. Liv Morgan would have won her way on the team eventually. Since she was the pick tonight, I'm sure she was going to be next in line anyway. They had to call an audible here. And like I said earlier as well, Liv Morgan kind of impressed me tonight. She did a good job considering who she was in there against, and she came out there with the win, so good for her, and good for the Riot Squad, who now join up together, Ruby Riot and Liv Morgan, joining forces with Bianca Belair as the newest member of Team SmackDown for the women. Interesting enough, absolutely not, barely any mention at all. If there was any mention at all, which I don't even think they really talked about it, the men's Survivor Series team. Don't they still need one member? Last I checked, I'm pretty sure there was only 4, but they didn't talk about it at all tonight. Ridiculous. You know what else is ridiculous? The same situation that we talked about with Drew McIntyre and the world title and Randy Orton and Roman Reigns. The same can be said when we talk about the tag team division. The Street Profits have been building towards this matchup with the New Day, and the build has actually been decent. They even did this thing where they extended the build by having Big E interact with the Street Profits on SmackDown in light of Kofi and Xavier being on Raw, and it's been very entertaining, just like it was tonight. The promo work has been great. But they keep dropping hints and saying that, well, if the New Day makes it to the Survivor Series. Now, if the New Day lose their championship match that's happening Monday as well, as they are facing the Hurt Business, that match now becomes the Hurt Business versus the Street Profits at the Survivor Series, which renders everything that they've been doing with Big E and the Street Profits on SmackDown null and void. Now, the one thing wrong with this, since the show is about everything wrong with the show, the biggest thing wrong with this is that Big E was supposed to get this big push to the top of the card. And apparently that's no longer the case, because the only thing they could find for him to do is promote the match for the team that they broke him up from. They split him up from the New Day to separate him from the New Day, to give him a singular focused push, and all he has done is try to promote the matches for the New Day. So now if the New Day are removed from the scenario, that is like completely wasting Big E. Almost the same exact argument as we said for Drew McIntyre. If Drew doesn't win now, everything that happened on tonight's SmackDown was useless. If the New Day don't retain their championships, everything they've been doing on SmackDown, building towards Survivor Series, is completely useless. And you can believe that the WWE would do this here as well, since the Hurt Business have been on a hot streak, as some would say. They're one of the biggest, hottest acts on Raw for some reason for most people, and I get that it's been good, and MVP's been good in his role, and the guys have been winning championships and stuff like that. But if you do this to the New Day, it's also affecting Big E, and it just, again, the theme of tonight's show, let's make as little sense as possible with every decision. That seemed to be the theme of tonight's show. Even more so, you could say that because the main event featuring Raw's Drew McIntyre taking on SmackDown's Jey Uso just 7 days before Survivor Series going down was made an unsanctioned match. Now, this was a terminology that wasn't used in the WWE very often. Very, very rarely. But now I guess since AEW uses it, they're going to bring it back and use it as well. And normally, in an unsanctioned matchup, the referee wouldn't be making counts on the outside. Isn't unsanctioned just like a fancy way to say, you know, falls count anywhere, or no holds barred, or no DQ? There really should be very little rules, if any, and the referee should only be there to count the three or call for the submission, and that's it. That's what unsanctioned means. Like, this is too intense for the card. This is happening outside the WWE. Is that how they're going to get around it, because it's Raw versus SmackDown? Oh, well, it was unsanctioned, so it didn't really count. What? I mean, if you're going to do it, at least follow the rules. Follow the rules. But whatever. That's just nitpicking at this point. This was a damn good match. Drew McIntyre brought his A game from the Red Brand. I wish he had more matches and interactions like this on Monday Night Raw, but he's just getting the SmackDown effect. He's getting that little rub-off from being involved with the Tribal Chief and the hottest thing going in the WWE right now, Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. I guess it's infectious. When you get in and around these guys, it just probably brings you up to the next level right now. Because this, like I said, was a very entertaining, very good match, but I did not like the fact that Drew McIntyre got the win clean, despite the distraction from Roman Reigns. And their biggest mistake here, as I pointed out at the start of the show, was there was no involvement from Randy Orton. No protection of Jey Uso's character, as it's been on this rise that it should have continued. And the whole entire confusion that it creates by just existing. I don't know where they're going to go with it. You have to believe that Drew McIntyre is going to win, because if not, there was no reason to book him to win this interpromotional main event tonight, which was, it's unfortunate. And I've said this on the show before, when a good matchup has just confusing and terrible storytelling behind it, it just takes it away. It takes something away from the match. In a match like this that you didn't expect to have tonight, you didn't expect to see Drew McIntyre ever really face Jey Uso again in a singles capacity, but here we are. Jey Uso gets, I think, like the third or fourth consecutive week that he's been in the main event on the show. Gives us another banger of a match. And it's all for nothing, really. Because now he gets his first loss since he's made this turn and become a badass. embarrassed his cousin even further. So now he's going to probably have consequences to pay with Roman for losing and embarrassing him. And the show ends tonight with a little bit of a face-to-face between Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns. And Drew McIntyre's not even the champion yet, which is what makes this all even more confusing as hell. I just don't get it. I don't get where they're going or why they would give it back to Drew. And if this was intended, why did they take it from him in the first place? I don't know. I just don't know. They've got me as flabbergasted as you guys. Let me know what you think, as always, down in the comments section below. Thank you once again for joining us here tonight on the SmackDown review. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this show in any way, if it made you laugh, if it made you cry, if it made you understand why this episode of SmackDown went back to Sucktown territory. Then all you got to do, smash that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button if you're not already a member of the Sledgehammer TV family, and then share this video with anybody else that you think might want to join, because we need more subscribers, and the best way to get subscribers is to ask, and you guys can help me accomplish my goal by sharing this video as much as possible, telling all your friends to come along and watch, and hit that subscribe button and become one of the members of the Sledgehammer Army as we continue to bring the hammer down on the World Wrestling Entertainment Company, one show at a time. With Survivor Series right around the corner, you want to make sure you're notified when all of our videos drop, so make sure you hit that notification bell so that you will never miss when a video goes live on this channel. Thank you guys all for everything that you do. My name is Nick Nightmare. This is the team. Thor the Sledgehammer, the official Sledgehammer of the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show. His tag team partner, the World Heavyweight Champion of all the microphones in all the world, Mr. Blue the Snowball, the most important member of the team, as always, each and every one of you. If you missed anything, it will be linked in the annotations up above. That, my friends, is going to do it. We are out of here, and we will see you next time right here on your new favorite wrestling show, the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, only on Sledgehammer TV, right here on YouTube.com.